Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. But for those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show. It is the eve of Thanksgiving 2016. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the bloviating Zeppelin for not leaving me alone. Mark, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you ever so kindly. Poor Clint, isn't he hunting turkey right now?
I don't know if it's...
Or is he hunting BW?
Well, or is she hunting him?
Either one.
The kill could be on. You never know. Yeah. So I don't know where Big Nose is.
Well, you can say that, but I can't.
Well, and here's what kills me, and I'm still logging into chat, so if you listen at shrmedia.com, we're coming. Click on live chat if you want to jump in there. But you know what kills me about this, and I say it all the time with him, is...
In a loving fashion.
Yes, of course it is.
You meet it with all the angst and love possible.
You know, there's just some days, though, it's like working with a teenager. He's like, I didn't know. I just showed up when I show up and blah, blah, blah. And he's probably listening, which is the best part. And I'm either going to get a text or yelled at eventually for it. Oh, man.
Joe in the chat room says, that's all right. Telling you, no, Clint, I'm leaving.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that, Joe. Just remember who controls the access. That's all.
Ooh, out.
Ooh, ow. Oh, yeah, no, I'm getting feisty this evening. Ooh. Trying to catch up and saying my hellos in the chat room because I was
Welcome to everyone whose in-laws have dropped in suddenly to town, and you have to be on your best behavior tomorrow all day. And as long as they're there as well. From me to you, good luck.
And I appreciate that. You know, it's you weren't talking directly to me. Oh, all of a sudden, by the way, in the chat room at shrmedia.com, and you can click Listen Live and chat. All of a sudden, I'm Jersey Joe's favorite sackhead.
I saw that. He says Sean is my favorite
sackhead. It's kind of funny how that works out, you know? It's nice to be loved. It's so nice to be loved. Thank you to everyone who's listening this evening. And all joking aside, we know you have a lot of places you could be tonight. With your friends and family, and if you're choosing to spend it with us, we
know there's a reason.
Yeah, sorry, we're a little bit crazy. No, we greatly appreciate your time and your efforts.
So what was up with Ken? Ken was like a ferret on crank tonight.
I'll tell you what, listening, first of all, he played one of my favorite clips of any movie ever, and I don't have it queued up, but Blazing Saddles, one of the most classic comedy movies of all time.
The frat scene?
No. I mean, that's a great scene, but Ken and I always go back and forth with our jokes, and we all know that. But when the sheriff first comes to town, Cleveland Little, by the way, who's an amazing actor, and all the townspeople are there, and he has the decree from the governor giving him the position of sheriff, and he has it inside his pants pocket. And, of course, they're all freaked out because here's a black man walking into Rock Ridge to be the sheriff. And, of course, it's a great play on rednecks and all this other stuff. But when he, excuse me while I whip this out, and the girl screams and passes out as he's reaching in, it's one of the best parts of the whole movie. It's just such a classic movie. I wish that some of these little snowflakes that are out there in this world would watch and understand what satire is, and maybe it'll toughen them up a little bit. Because we use that movie a lot on this show as an example, but you look at the edge that was pushed in that movie.
You couldn't do that movie today. You wouldn't have any. You wouldn't have any attendance. The other thing is, you could not do All in the Family either.
Some of the Saturday Night Live skits back in the day.
You couldn't do Laugh-In.
Laugh-In? Absolutely not. Because satire, a key component of free speech, and I say that all the time, certainly for this show and other shows. But satire is an enormous part of free speech, right? Look at what we deal with. Look at Charlie Hebdo. Prime example, a very satirical cartoon. Or magazine, rather. And the attacks that literally they specifically were under from the Islamist PC left. And I'm not saying that all leftists are Islamists and vice versa, but that whole accept me or you'll be killed. In this country, free speech used to be encompassing satire. And now satire is so weak, and satire... And there's... South Park in the early days. There's some great examples still. The Simpsons used to go after everybody. But it's all been toned down and dumbed down. Our free speech gets dumbed down. And when they go after satire, they go after a big portion of free speech, and they do it in a very toned down way. Only because, it's just some jokes. We're just, they don't need to be funny. That's not really part of free speech. It doesn't really hurt anything, right? But they have to be nicer with their comedy. Why?
Exactly.
One of the
My God, can you imagine Don Rickles making any kind of a comment today? Number one, nobody knows who he is.
Right.
And number two, if they
Sammy.
did, him saying anything today, OMG.
You go back to those roasts, and Rickles in general, but you go back to the roasts.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
And with Sammy Davis Jr. specifically, and there was certainly other black men and women who were on some of those rows, but Sammy was quite a regular. And the jokes that would get made back and forth. I mean, Don Rickles was equal opportunity. There was no individual who ever ducked Rickles.
No one was spared.
But he would go after Sammy very, very hard because he was the regular black guy. But it was that mockery of the people versus Sammy. Like, and that's who Rickles was. He wasn't making fun of Sammy Davis Jr. He was making fun of the fact that people would look at that in an odd way. And at the time they did. And you don't realize that in the 40s, the Rat Pack was actually amazingly ahead of their time.
They were way ahead of their time for embracing Sammy Davis Jr. And they used to take umbrage when they'd go to various places and he wasn't allowed to go a particular place. They wouldn't go either.
Yes. And they stood up for him a lot. And not that he needed it, because Sammy was not afraid of anybody.
Nope, he could handle himself.
Absolutely. And he was a brilliant guy and a hell of a singer. Carrie said she wants to roast Sean. That happens every time Clint's in the studio. But yeah, maybe one night we'll do a roast. That would be great. We'll have all the people call in, and I would love to. I wouldn't mind getting roasted.
Wait a minute. I just had this idea. What about this? We'll make it a combined event. We'll have it a roast, and we'll have it the Sackheads Radio Liquor Show.
Oh, yes. Sackheads After Dark is usually when we start drinking. I think that would be awesome.
That would be a great combination. There's nothing better than grease liquor and jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Because, with alcohol, everything gets funnier.
Everything totally gets better. Everything actually gets better, except, no, just about everything.
Yeah,
but so you had all the way back in the day, and these were the Hollywood elite back in the day. Unlike the Hollywood elite we have now, that doesn't stand up for anything and wants these snowflakes and blah, 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 and all the BS that you get out of these liberal lunatics that are in Hollywood. The fact that they annihilate people that disagree with them in their own community and do everything they can. I mean, you look at James Woods, and I've talked about James Woods before, who's on Twitter, huge conservative, has had to leave Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. He left.
He knows for a fact that he'll probably never get another job in Hollywood. And you have some other people that have come out and put their careers at risk. John Voight, another big
John
conservative.
Voight is a very conservative individual. Bruce Willis.
They leave Bruce alone because they know Bruce, no matter what, will draw a ton of money. So you don't see them going after Bruce all that often. Woods can draw a lot of money, but not as much as Bruce Willis could be. So that's the left summed up. Whereas back in the day, they stood up for free speech. They pushed the envelope of free speech, right? Blazing Saddles in the 70s to make fun of a certain part of America just after the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, it was still tense in this country. And not only did Mel Brooks write that, and it mocked a good percentage of this, the southern portion of this country at the time. Not all, not saying that, but there was still a lot of tension in that area. But it also mocked our society in general in a good way. It was a very educational movie. But not only did he write it, a studio backed it. It got funding. It got produced. Because people at the time could laugh at something that was quote-unquote off-color and be okay with the fact that it's just a joke.
That's it. It's just a joke. People do not understand the reason for the existence of the First Amendment. The First Amendment exists not for pablum speech or word salad speech. It exists for challenging speech.
Yes. So it kills me, and this is going to bring me to a college in Massachusetts. There was a college in Massachusetts. I should know the name of it, and I'm going to look it up real quick because I've forgotten through all of my stories that I'm trying to get ready today. But the night that Donald Trump was elected, we were on the air, somebody set fire to the American flag as it was on the pole, from what I understand.
Ah, yes. All right. By the way, just out of curiosity, I think I know where you're going. Do you have that video queued up?
I don't have that video queued up.
Are you talking about Tucker Carlson?
No. I know Tucker gave a comment on it and a couple other things, but I'm wrapping this into the free speech portion of it. Hampshire College, because somebody became so incensed that Donald Trump won the election, somebody decided to burn the American flag. Hampshire College, being the bastion of free speech, said, hey, we're going to put up a new one, and then lower it at half staff in solidarity with all the people who were upset, trying to quell them. Instead of just saying, excuse me,
Yeah, who cares?
instead of just saying, hey, this is our flag, don't you dare burn it. This stands for a symbol of our nation. And this stands for all of the freedom and the bitching and moaning that you little pricks are doing in your college. This flag is the symbol of why you can still do it. And we're going to put it back up. And if anyone touches it, not only are you going to be kicked out of the college, we'll put a camera on the damn thing, but you'll be prosecuted for destruction of property. And we know nobody does the whole flag prosecution anymore. But it's still property. It's ours. We put it up. You'll be prosecuted and kicked out of college. Up yours. But no, they lowered it. Well, we still want them to feel like this is a safe place. Well, is the crime rate through the roof? No, it's Hampshire College in the middle of Amherst, Mass. Then it's a friggin' safe place.
Well, and it's an extremely safe place for $64,000 a year.
Yes. Yes.
The reason I thought you were going to go to Tucker Carlson is because there's a wonderful, if you folks haven't seen it, there's a great video on YouTube. And Tucker Carlson recently came over to Fox News. And this video is called Campus Craziness, College Stops Flying American Flag. And so Tucker Carlson interviews that particular individual who had to do with Hampshire College, and he fillets him with a knife. And it's absolutely wonderful. If you've not seen it, it's available on YouTube. Put Campus Craziness, College Stops Flying American Flag. Or you can go to blovidianzeppelin.net and look for my post, Best and Brightest.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Studios at U.S. universities. Tucker Carlson takes him apart.
Well, that was a nice plug, too, for your website. Good
Thank
job
you.
on
Thank
that.
you.
You're
Thank
getting
you.
better at that. I
Thank
like
you.
that. But the snowflakes aren't... God, I wish global warming would come and melt these damn snowflakes. But it doesn't end there. Because now you go to George Washington University. Have you heard about this one? The cops protecting us, this is from the National Review, is a, quote, act of violence, end quote, because the police union endorsed Donald Trump. A group of college students, in a letter, which was sent to George Washington University, demands for our campus by concerned students. You can't make this crap up, ladies and gentlemen. George Washington University, which is in Washington, D.C., a bastion of crime-free zone, a very, very safe place, and it's like paradise there on a regular basis. I'm almost positive. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a 3-page. This is a 3-page letter that they sent, and essentially, they're saying that because their police department and thousands of police officers in the area who are part of the Fraternal Order of Police, and that Fraternal Order of Police backed Donald Trump, then they feel that they should not be enforcing the law on their campus because it's not a safe place for them. That somehow by endorsing a presidential candidate, it makes these police officers thugs on a certain level. It's horrible. It's just out of my mind. But what's even more out of my mind, or drives me more out of my mind, is the simple fact that you have the balls to say to men and women in uniform who are trying to defend your life, livelihood, property, etc. In a decade where we have a lot of violence on campus, you can thank the left for that. To have the audacity to turn around and say, this is more violent that you stick us with these cops because of who they voted for politically. Now, I don't want to even go down the political persecution road, because we forgot about that, right? In this country, one of our processes, you're not supposed to be held. You're not supposed to be at all hurt through your job or anything else through your political beliefs, right? You can't necessarily, you have protection for having a political belief. But let's throw that out the window. For them to turn around and say, we don't want these cops here because of who they supported, I say great. Awesome.
See, I'm a
pull them all out.
that's my first thought. I'm a punitive kind of an individual, and my first response, my gut response is, all right, take all those officers off that university campus, spread them around the rest of the communities, and just watch.
DC Metro don't respond for service.
No, it's not their property.
But they're one of the primary responses because of where it's located. They have their own police department. They have a memorandum of understanding, if I've read correctly. But it amazes me that, a year and a half after what we saw in Baltimore, where the police stopped being proactive and were only responding to calls for service because of the community's reaction to the Freddie Gray incident, where 2 months later, the same communities were crying, hey, where are all the cops? Why aren't they helping us? They're not doing anything to help us. It's like a demilitarized zone down here. Ooh, these cops aren't doing anything. Well, you told us you didn't want us here. Well, we only want some of yous here. It's just up the road from D.C. The lesson was not that far away. You're a friggin' college student. You're supposed to be learning. And you didn't learn a lesson from that. And now you're going to go all panty-wasted out? Oh, we can't because they voted for... Do you not want some members of the military not protecting you?
Well, there were people that were saying, probably 5 or 6 months ago, BLM was saying, let's get Chicago PD defunded. And my initial response was,
go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Do it. Just do it.
Think about what an amazing, amazing place Chicago would be right now if law enforcement walked away. It's so bad in Chicago, and they won't even admit this. They're adding 1,000 officers in Chicago. Not because of attrition and retirement, but because their crime has gotten so bad, and they've done the whole let's hug a thug for a long time, that they now have said, we need to put about 1,000 more cops on the street to get this under control.
Well, they're shooting for 800 deaths this year. Ooh, what a record.
I saw what you did there, shooting for 800 deaths.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. Tip your waitress.
But, yeah, what about the military? Do you not want the military protecting the homeland if they voted for Trump?
I'm sure there are some
people... What about a doctor?
Who would not want the military
What about
operating?
A doctor? What if a doctor... Let's just put who we voted on our shirts and walk around in society. Or our Starbucks cup, which seems to be a trend right now. What if you had a massive injury and you get brought to the doctor and he's like, oh, hey, George Washington. Yeah, we went through that whole sign the letter thing. We saw your name. I'm a Trump supporter. You're going to lose your leg because you don't want me.
That's what Ronald Reagan said right after he was shot. Doctor, I hope you're a Republican.
Because I don't want you. Are you absolutely friggin' kidding me? People wonder why we lose as a nation right now. People wonder why our education system is deplorable. People wonder why we have these kids out there. This is the everybody wins society come to fruition. This is it. We are so close to the liberal dream. The only thing left to do would be to federalize law enforcement and liquidate all funds and separate them equally. And we're there, right? Because you have people who believe that government, federal government, should be controlling law enforcement. Horrible idea. I don't know if you even understand the implication.
I have a post coming about that in about 2 weeks, and it's taken me over a month to get all the information about that with regard to law enforcement and its future. That's a contemporary point.
Absolutely. And so you have that. You have them all complaining about rich people. You mean the people that earn their money and invested wisely? Yeah, those sons of bitches needs to be penalized. You have Obamacare. It's already in place. Hopefully we'll repeal that very shortly, but as it stands today at this very moment, it's there. We are so close to the utopian left that honestly, I think if Obama had another 7 months, we may be at that tipping point. I know if Clinton got elected, we would have passed it.
Well, that leads into another massive discussion, but I'd like to go back very briefly to something that you said about 5 minutes ago or so, that you should be free at your business, free of retribution in terms of who you voted for. And so who do you think were some of the first people to fly in the face of that? Do you remember about a week ago, Grubhub?
Yes.
And the CEO of that, Matt Maloney, said, if you don't agree with this statement, please reply to the email with your resignation because you have no place here. We do not tolerate hateful attitudes on our team. He said that employees who agree with President-elect Donald Trump's behaviors in his campaign, they should simply resign. So all of the things that the people on the right or conservatives are accused of,
the left does.
The left actually physically does.
They want to burn down America, blah, 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 blah. And then you look at the news, and it's all these leftist lunatics that are running around lighting shit on fire.
Yes.
But they want to blame the right. You know,
the thing that just sent me over the top with joy is when all the little leftists in Portland, for example, were rioting, and there was great video of these rioters who love and embrace public transit, going to public transit kiosks, breaking the benches, breaking the glass, and smashing the monitors that tell you how to get places on public transit. The other thing that I absolutely loved is these people who are greenies and love plants and trees and rocks and air.
We do.
We're also setting trees on fire in Portland. It doesn't get better than that. Portland, live with it.
Well, and then, of course, you also have them with all their cups, Starbucks cups, all the trash that they leave around, burning the tires. The list goes on and on and on. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with their agenda on that level. It had to do with they lose, and they don't know how to win. They don't know how to lose.
No, they've not been taught by the mommies and daddies.
I've said, and I've had a few conversations with my libertarian friends who are still not happy with the results, but obviously are handling it much different than the lunatics on the left. But I said to the libertarians, now is your time. Don't wait until a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years to start getting in. Find somebody better than Gary Johnson.
I was going to say, don't choose a loon next time.
Right. But you start building now and get ready for it. And then you will have a bigger say in the next election. I've been very open on this show that, and Clint has, I would rather have 12 viable candidates from 9 different parties or eliminate parties to consider voting for than just a couple. And not because of any other reason than there are more voices out there than just the two that the two big parties chose. 2.5 parties. Libertarians are catching up. They're trying. You know, same thing with Jill Stein. I think Jill Stein's a nutball. But she has the right to run. And,
certainly.
And their party has the right to be able to run. But I say it all the time. careful what you wish for. As we saw with Trump, who bucked the GOP and won anyways, you're going to have people who run that are actually in touch with what's going on in society. Say what you want about Trump, he was in touch with what was going on with society, and that's why he won. He spoke to people who really wanted change.
Yes.
And he touched them, not in a bad way. He touched them emotionally before rumors start flying around. But he got to them. Whether you agree with his politics or not, his projection, how he got to that point, is because he actually knew the people that he was talking to. Unlike Hillary Clinton, and even on some level, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, I think, forgot who he was talking to. I think he had too much bad advice from the old guard GOP. The old guard GOP has no idea who's out there anymore.
The old staid country club GOP were the people that got Trump on Front Street in the first place.
They have nobody to blame but themselves.
You know, it's like the David Byrne song from Talking Heads, "Watch out, you might get what you're after." Well, guess what? Democrats, it's coming back to you. When you decide that you're going to not obey the rule of law, expect the rule of law will not be obeyed when other things and other people come in power. When you decide you're going to craft all these various EOs, executive orders, expect that, on the other hand, EOs themselves are going to get crafted.
Yep.
If you open a door, expect that people are going to walk through.
Absolutely.
But the leftists and Democrats don't have the foresight or the ability to think 1, 2, or 3 steps down the line. Unintended consequences.
Yes.
And that is how they draft their bills as well, as if they do it in a vacuum.
Absolutely.
And they think that the job of business is to take it up the arse consistently, and they should be willing to spew money for whatever rules, regulations, and taxes are applied to businesses in the United States.
Yep.
And we also have the highest taxation rate for business on the entire planet. And so and so when you have Obamacare and you limit the number of people at, I don't know, what was it, 50, 40 employees, something like that, 30 employees, and then below a particular number, you didn't have to belong to Obamacare. What do you think small businesses did? They contracted. Those were the rules and regulations responsible for, directly, the contraction of business. You wonder why businesses weren't expanding. You wonder why businesses weren't hiring more people, investing more in infrastructure. The past 8 years under Barack Hussein Obama have been a huge question mark for business because they literally cannot forecast the future.
Yep, absolutely.
They can't plan. They can't think. They can't forecast and try to figure out where the economy is going to be, where employment is going to go, where rules and regulations are going to go. And when businesses can't have some kind of a hook on planning.
Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Then they're basically dog paddle.
And before we go to break, and Dave put it in the chat room, and this is great. The election's over. I won. Elections have consequences.
That's what I've been saying ever since. That's a direct quote with from Barack Obama.
Yeah, that was.
They do have consequences.
They do.
Live with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about the fake news list, our current state of law enforcement, and so much more here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. It's Thanksgiving Eve.
And we won't sing to you.
And I'm going to tell you all about my new friend Trent.
Oh, cool. All right, good.
We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. It is the bloviating Zeppelin and I, Sackhead Sean.
Hello.
Just here trying to make up for the absence.
I don't know why, but that makes me think of this Monty Python line. The penguin on the telly's exploded.
I love Monty Python, by the way.
Every one of their movies was glorious. The TV show
Flying
was great.
Circus was amazing. Yeah, they were a great group. Just their comedy. You know, there's so many times that you have to step away from your beliefs on certain things to be able to watch and just enjoy for the comedy it is, like we're talking about Mel Brooks earlier.
If you were a Catholic and watched The Meaning of Life, you might not have been too terribly
And
pleased for
I,
a while.
being a Catholic, I thought it was hysterical. You have to be able to mock everything.
Every sperm is sacred.
Everything. You have to be able to mock everything. Because I'm a Roman Catholic.
Okay, I said I wasn't going to sing, but I will. Every sperm is sacred. Every sperm is great. Now I can't remember the rest of the song. Darn it.
Every sperm is needed in your neighborhood.
In your neighborhood, yes!
So we're going to go right from that to Thanksgiving.
Perfect segue.
What are we thankful for? Oh, man. I'll go ahead and let you start. It was your topic. You did make the board tonight. We're inching you into responsibilities a little bit more.
I know, just a bit. Just a bit.
And I am...
Clint?
I'm actually taking notes for your review.
Inside baseball, Clint usually does the board
Yes.
and creates the topics. So for those of you who didn't know, Clint is generally the person who sets all the topics and the discussions for each show. And
Yes.
we've got a whiteboard. It's to the right of Sean, and it's to the left of me, and that's where we usually put up a topic so everybody can see them. But in terms of Thanksgiving, because tomorrow is that great adrenaline-filled day, what am I thankful for? I think it's perhaps even too obvious, but I am so thankful that we don't have Clinton-elect. Now,
Remember when it just used to be family?
Oh, yeah. And I say that despite the fact that Trump was not my guy from the very beginning. I'm the first one to admit it. And I'm also the first one to admit that of all the things that he said that he would do to get himself elected, he's not unlike every other politician because there are certain things that he can't keep or won't keep for whatever reason. And people are pointing to it and saying, oh my God, look, everything is collapsing. The world is burning even as we speak. And to that I say, you know what? I'm not willing to set all that shit on fire just for a few points. Because if you're an adult, you know that you're not going to get everything that you want. The only person who would be perfect for president, as far as I'm concerned, is me. And I'm not running, nor will I ever. So when I voted for an individual, as an adult who deals with the actual reality of this planet, I know there's going to be a ton of things that he won't do or won't be able to do. I know this. Despite that, I'm still thankful that he won. And here's another thing. I'm also thankful that I was here to watch the election occur on election night live with you and Clint and everybody else that called in.
Yes.
Jersey Joe, who ran everything in the background.
Machine. He's a machine.
Ken called in. Kerry called in.
He's a machine.
Jeff Dunitz called in. It was a great night, and it made that even more important.
Jeff's a loud machine. I love Jeff. I love Jeff so much, it's not even funny. You know, it's one of those things, too. You look at... and I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just saying that it made it even more personal and important to me when I was able to watch it in real time and be around people of the creative and political abilities that you and Clint and everybody that was involved with that night had. It was a wonderful thing to see. So I'm thankful for all of that.
I am thankful. First, I do have to go family first, and health. And in about 5 months, I'll be able to explain that a little bit more, but I can't really go into it right now. But health is a big deal. So I am very thankful for that. But I also want to thank Trent the Turkey for his sacrifice.
So that's who Trent is.
Trent the Turkey, yes.
A little bit of alliteration there. I like that.
We ordered a turkey from a turkey farm for Thanksgiving. And turkey farm's literally a block and a half from my house. It's called Brannigan's. Great farm.
Turkeys are evil.
They can be mean. And when we ordered it, we were told his name is Trent, and he'll be 12 to 14 pounds. And
somebody, excuse me, Coke went down my wrong nose.
And I was...
Oh, sorry, I meant Diet Coke, not the other one.
I was so happy that he had a name for some strange reason. I don't know why that made me happy. There's a great comedian out there. I can't believe I just blanked on his name, Jim Gaffigan, who has this whole spiel about eating chicken and how, like, you know, he's like, you know, I feel bad that it had to be killed, but I'm still going to eat it. And maybe if, like, he was a felon or some sort of evil chicken, I'd feel better about it. And you know, it's more of like a, hey, you know what, find out if he has a name and any friends, too. Like, any friends or likes or personal. I like getting to know my turkey a little bit more before I cook it.
Right,
So
exactly.
I picked up Trent today. And for all you PETA people, I did put him in a brine, but I gave him a snorkel. So he could
Very
breathe.
nice, very nice.
So he
Did
could
you check
breathe.
him on Facebook and Twitter?
I'm
and
going
Instagram?
to. I'm going to. And tomorrow, because I believe in kindness to my turkey, I'm going to allow him to take up smoking for approximately 10 hours. So I'm
Excellent,
thankful to Trent
excellent.
for his sacrifice. Listen, I am thankful that we don't have to listen to 4 more years of the Hill Dog.
If for no other reason than the Fran Drescher / chalkboard effect.
Yes.
We've had to listen to 8 years of Barack Obama.
It's the same
In your
thing.
history, do you ever remember a president who had to get on television every day to say something?
But not to take questions.
No.
He would almost stand in his pulpit and bully in a lot of ways. He used the so-called media, the idiots on the left, as his own personal soapbox for no real agenda. And that was the thing that's always killed me about him, is when he spoke to the country, it was always about social issues. It was always about, like, these personal feeling. He never came out and answered questions on policy. He was very selective. As we've seen with the Podesta emails in Clinton, the left colludes with the so-called mainstream media maggots.
And boy, is that leading somewhere.
And everything gets set up to the questions that are going to ask, etc. So,
See, and that's
Carrie's in the chat room calling the old media. I think that's giving him a lot of credit, calling them media. But so, I am glad he won. I'm glad that we don't have to listen to the leftist lunatic agenda on the forefront. It'll still be there in the background, but on the forefront. And listen, the media maggots haven't changed since the election. They're still trying to find ways to incite these.
No, leftists can learn nothing.
Nope.
From history. They have what I call historical Alzheimer's.
Which is awesome to me about the New York Times meeting that Trump had, or the meeting with media that Trump had.
Oh, and they all went in with certain expectations.
And he destroyed
and
them.
then it was a 180.
It was like I forget what the exact quote was, but it was like
he flamed them.
Yes.
He set them on fire.
And he literally called them out by name.
Yes.
And said, hey, this is the reason why you suck. This is the reason why you suck. What are you doing here? You worked with Hillary. All these different things. And now they're going to freak out even more about him, which is exactly what he wants. And I'm so glad, because while they're running around in circles trying to find stupid things to attack him for, he goes to work on policy. And the best part is he turned around, after he called him out on everything, he essentially said, hey, now is the time for you to redeem yourself. Now is the time for you to actually report the news versus your take on it. And I understand there's opinion shows and news reporting. There's two very, very big differences there. We are not a news show. I say that all the time. We are an outlet. We're a commentary show. We have our opinions, and very loud ones at that.
Yes. My blog is not a news blog.
Right.
It's an opinion blog.
The media has forgot that your job is to report facts and then let people digest that how they may. Not to put your own personal twist on these so-called facts like you've done for the last 8 years primarily. It's like going to a house fire and start talking about how the owner of that house should be responsible for the global warming it's causing. You're not reporting what's really going on there. You're not reporting on the fire. You're twisting it to meet your agenda. And I'm glad that was called out. I'm hoping that comes to an end. I am hoping that outlets like ours, and it's looking more and more like that, who got this president-elect where he is because we were not afraid to speak out against the left, and we were not afraid to speak a lot of truths. Even if sometimes we didn't like them, we still spoke them. That's the way it was, or that's the way it should be.
Well, there was a wonderful little commentary earlier today on CNN, of all places, by a news reader by the name of Brooke Baldwin, who said to the audience that Congress already has term limits. Crickets. Are you serious? Yes, they're very serious. That got on CNN.
Yeah, they do have term limits in the sense of they can only serve so many years before they have to be re-elected.
Yes,
but there's
but
no rule on how many times they can be re-elected.
Yes.
So it's not... Okay, so she's technically correct.
But that's not what she meant if you look at the whole thing.
But that's what the quote will be.
Yes.
And that's a prime example of what the left does. You had White Lash, Van Jones, one of the biggest... he might as well be the spokesperson for the Obama administration versus a pundit. So, to get back to what we were talking about before we went off on a tangent, I am thankful for the fact that we're going to be coming out of this administration and into an administration that appears to be shaping up to do some good things, hopefully. And we'll talk about that in one of the next segments. I am thankful for the friends here, and I've already mentioned family, so make sure everyone knows that, at SHR Media that have been working so hard the last couple weeks, for the last couple years, but really the last couple weeks for putting it together, having some great meetings, some great ideas. Everyone's putting their best foot forward. We're trying to make our outlet better. I have some people working on some amazing things that it's going to be outstanding, and I'm very, very grateful to those folks. A lot of them are in the chat room right now. A lot of them write for us, work with us. And to be here that election night for the coverage that and I went off not too long ago and listened to election night coverage again. I hate the sound of my voice, as funny as that may sound.
It's sort of a natural reaction that people have.
That night, I talked for 8 hours? 6 hours, I think it was?
Yeah.
I talked on the show.
You're sitting in the catbird seat, running the board, moving people in when they come in to call, et cetera, et cetera.
And I still hate my voice.
You're the moderator.
I think it's annoying and obnoxious, and I apologize to a lot of people for my voice. But to have that great coverage and just this great community that we've had, where everyone has the same agenda, even if we don't always know how we're going to get there, we have the same outcome. And it is not necessarily to be the number one media outlet in the world. It's a nice goal, and we're looking towards it. But more importantly, to protect this country from itself sometimes. Preserve our Constitution. Preserve freedom. For not just us, because I say it all the time, the changes that we're instilling now will not affect me per se in life. They will affect our children and our children's children's.
That's one of the aspects that I thought was so incredibly important about Trump was his potential influence on the Supreme Court for literally at least one generation. And I think, quite seriously, we dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
A very important
It was like the Matrix.
Bullet. The other thing is, timing is everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that I don't want to get all weepy here for a moment, but I think that I happened to pick the perfect time to get in touch with you and then have the ability to get on SHR Media. And I thank you for that, for sitting down and having the initial meeting with me and allowing me to get back into radio because of something that I absolutely loved for many, many years. Plus, combined with the fact that I, as you, think this place, SHR, is going to go somewhere.
Well, thank you.
It's going to go somewhere very seriously, and it may not be number one, but I'm telling you, for what it does and the viewpoints that it has and the people that it's accumulating, it's going to be a very large player. Because in internet streaming, we all know, and I hate to admit it because I love it, terrestrial radio is probably going the way of the dodo bird or the coelacanth. And that most every radio station is already on the internet. So what you're already doing here, in advance of terrestrial radio, you're doing the future. The future is already here. So that's why I'm happy to be so glad to be a part of all of this. I consider myself fortunate.
I do as well, and I appreciate it. And like I said, we started this not because of us. I could care less about being famous. I think there's some great voices on the network that deserve to be famous, and I'll work hard to make that happen. But not necessarily me. I don't deserve to be famous on any level. But again, it comes to being a voice to preserve this republic for the future and making sure that long after I'm dead and worm food, there is still freedom in this country. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to live in a country where I can actually affect that. And it's not just some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. It's not just some appointed czar or some. We still have that voice on our side to be able to stand up, as we saw with this last election, to be able to stand up and help preserve those freedoms and our liberty. And that's hugely important to me.
I think you have to ask yourself one basic fundamental question. When was the last time that anyone on the left enabled a greater amount of freedoms for anyone in the United States?
Never.
It's an if-then equation. If that's true, then why do people vote for them who are those who are so willing to give away their freedoms?
Because I almost think that they feel like they can't be trusted with their own freedoms. They don't trust themselves. They have this belief that is taught in our school systems that government knows better than you do what's best for you. And as we see with this election, when they don't get it, they have the blowout.
No, and if their philosophy cannot remain supreme, then they'll do their level best to make sure that you cannot provide any pushback to it. They'll remove your freedoms to speak, to think, to write, etc.
Absolutely. Which brings us to fake news. I know we only have 6 minutes left in the segment, but there was a story written or an op-ed written by a professor who released his list of fake news. I believe he was out of UCLA.
It was a leftist female, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find that. List of fake news sites.
But you look at some of the people that were on that list, and it came out earlier this week or late last week. It was last Friday, because I remember specifically when it came out. Can you tell me the last time somebody put out a list like this that maybe involved, I don't know, MSNBC Sleaze, the New York Times, or any of the other ones that they felt were not real news, which we know they colluded with Hillary Clinton. We know they can be bought off, so they really aren't real news because they're being bought. Their stories are being bought and paid for. When you're sending your story to a campaign for approval before you run it, that's not news.
No, but
that's an op-ed paid for that's disguised as news.
Well, in terms, and it's also, let's call it what it is. It's collusion. It's absolute collusion. If we did not have WikiLeaks,
oh yes,
the things that we subliminally always knew were occurring in the background, but no one would even remotely acknowledge. Now we know for a fact we're correct, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And so I perceive what I call the American media maggots to be nothing as they want to be and demand to be respected as gatekeepers.
Yes.
They and only they,
Guardians of the Republic.
They and only they can be the ones who determine what's news and what you should hear. You can remember, I'm sure, the CNN reporter who got on the air and said that it's illegal for you to have and hold the WikiLeaks emails.
Yes.
And that only CNN can be the proper purveyor of this information. Again, hello, gatekeeper. They want to decide, and that's what the movement's all about. They want to decide what it is that you see. And if it's not created or promoted by them, then they're coming to the conclusion that it's nothing more than fake news.
Yep. Essentially, if you want to silence others, you just, it's very Alinsky-like, right? You just
It's
start
exactly out of the Alinsky playbook.
Denouncing them nonstop about what they're horrible and this is this and this is that, blah, 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 blah. Her name was Melissa Zimdar. She's an associate professor of communications at Merrimack College in Massachusetts, figures, who put up a Google Doc about fake, misleading, blah, blah, blah news sites. Now, she was really, really smart about how she wrote this, because she started to discuss clickbait first, which if you don't know what clickbait is, it's just sensationalized links that are advertising to get you to go to certain things. But then she started to go down a list and pick on certain ones, and I'm looking for the specific ones. But a lot of them that she mixed into these so-called news, fake news websites were legitimate media outlets, much like ours.
Well, WND was on it, Breitbart was on it, because of Spencer, for no other reason than that.
Yep. And then, after she goes down and talks about how bastardizing them, she pushes other sites. Fox is one of them, but the Huffington Post, the Daily Kos. Huffington Post is Arianna Huffington's personal op-ed.
It's just an organ.
Right.
For opinion.
Right. And it's no different than ours. Don't get me wrong.
No, but we acknowledge what we are.
Exactly.
I'll admit it all day long.
Yep. And we say that from the beginning. If you don't like our opinions, shut us off. Huffington Post likes to box themselves as a news source versus a media outlet.
Well, they're a news source like my arse can sing.
Soprano. So this is where the left is at now.
Wait a minute. It does sing on occasion.
It does. This is where the left is at now. Because a lot of WND, Breitbart, all these other ones, they led to the loss of Clinton. They helped report things, and Clinton lost.
Exactly.
So now they're coming out and saying, hey, we have to destroy these outlets like SHR Media. We didn't make the list, unfortunately. I wish we had.
In a way,
because
yes.
it would be fun. But these smaller outlets like SHR Media, I think R&R was on it, or Red State was on it. A couple other ones. They're destroying them, so when they move in the future to control that media, to control that news, to get it into these little snowflakes' heads, they've already started the straw man teardown campaign, and that's where we're at now. So if you think that the left is just huddled in a corner after this loss, just crying themselves, and no, the left sheep are.
The plans are afoot.
But those who are stirring that pot on the left, the elitists on the left, are already starting to reform, regroup, and go into attack mode. And I'll tell you something. The next 4 years, the coverage that Obama should have got from these news sources about the horrible decisions that he has made as president, you will start seeing them nitpicking the slightest things from this president-elect and blowing them up so big. And
well, that's already occurring.
Hamburger, cheeseburger. That's the cheeseburger story. That is the beginning of it. He went out and got a cheeseburger. He didn't tell us. I talked about it last week. That's the beginning of it. They're going to go after everything they can to try to persuade you from finding the facts, because they're just going to spoon feed you crap.
Well, as I said on Ken's show on Monday, If we or you or anyone else thinks that things are going to kind of mellow out for a while and then it'll get back kindly, this is the new normal, ladies and gentlemen. It's here. What you see now is the way it's going to be, I'm guessing, for at least the next 4 years.
Yep. Oh, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. So make sure you check your facts over the next couple of years. I know that most of the people that listen to our network don't buy the crap that comes out of some of those news source, quote-unquote, news sources. But do us a favor. Always verify your facts. We're up against a break. When we come back, it's been a tragic week for law enforcement all the way around. We're going to talk about that and more here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show. Wait, I forgot we have music on this one. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the nice music.
Yes, it's so relaxing.
That's a nice intro. I like that.
I like it. Now I can say welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for hanging with us.
Fake news, I have one more point, and the reason I say that is because it occurred so recently. Reince Priebus recently said, today or yesterday, look, I'm not going to rule out anything in response to a question from the press. He said, but we are not going to have a registry based on religion. NBC News reported only the first sentence to give the impression that he was in fact leaving the door open to a Muslim registry, which he had explicitly ruled out, however. So that's a continuing point from NBC to mask the truth and provide truths. It's not stopping. It's just going to continue. I had to throw that out because it's so recent, and it's going to continue.
Well, and while we're talking about it, the interview that was sent out about Kellyanne Conway, how they packaged that up. All the news alerts that I got when she was speaking about Trump and going after Clinton, all of the news stories that I got were Donald Trump not going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. And I said, and as soon as we sat down and started talking about it.
Yeah, we chatted about that.
I said, you're right. He's not, because he's not the Attorney General. If anyone's going to go after her, it'll be Pete Sessions. Pete Sessions. Did I say Pete, Jeff?
Yes, close enough. You had a good
one of the
friend named
Sessions
Pete.
brothers. It'll be the Attorney General. It'll be the Department of Justice. So he can't go after her personally. That's not his role.
No, exactly. Ann Coulter was actually correct on that.
Yes.
And there's a folks, if you haven't seen this one too on YouTube, there's a wonderful collection of stories in YouTube, and I don't know its title, but you'll probably be able to find it, of all the various left-wing people saying that Trump won't do this and Trump won't do that, and he can't possibly be this. And in terms of Schadenfreude, it's just glorious to watch. And I'm sorry, that when the leftists dance around the fire, when they win, expect the same will occur. And I am not, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not big on compromise and bipartisanship. Not when you're talking about my freedom, my ability to hold the Bill of Rights and our foundational documents dear, because it is all about freedom. And when you speak about removing them, I tend to take just a bit umbrage.
Well, and we say it all the time. The left constantly talks about compromise, but it's only from our values.
Yes.
It's never from theirs.
Compromise and bipartisanship must always occur on the side of the conservatives or the Republicans, never by way of leftists or the Democrats.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. So that's what we're up against. And it's going to be a long couple of years. Moving right along. It has been yet another tragic week for our law enforcement officers in this country. A trend that is not going away, and it's just heartbreaking. You had 5 more law enforcement officers in the last 8 days who were shot and killed.
Yes.
I believe 2 or 3 appears to be assassination style.
Yes, they were direct shots to the head. They were ambush headshots.
And Wayne State University, an officer was shot last evening in the head, and they took him off life support today. Though the chief came out pretty quickly, and when you're dealing with college police departments, there is politics in play, so remember that. And said, this doesn't look like an assassination like the other ones. But when an officer is shot in the head at apparently point blank, and
one was shot twice in the head.
Yeah, that's pretty telling. You're the San Antonio officer, Detective Marconi, who's sitting in a car writing a traffic ticket.
Yes.
And this guy shot him twice in the head, and stated that it had something to do with child support and a divorce and all this other stuff. And then on top of that, you had 4 other officers who were shot and lived, fortunately. You had Sanibel, Florida, Gladstone, Missouri. An LAPD officer was shot, and then there was another officer. And this doesn't include the officers who have died in other ways this week. This is just those who were apparently targeted for being law enforcement. We are still seeing, as we talked about earlier, the outrage of the left. We're still seeing this and a deputy U.S. Marshal was killed as well.
Yes, from Florida, I think, right?
Yeah. We're still seeing this anti-police rhetoric that gets all ramped up by the left that is still that is expanding. I want to say that law enforcement officers targeted and killed for being law enforcement officers up 180% this year.
Yes, exactly. And just as you mentioned, and I'd like to make this point if I could, 5 law enforcement officers killed, 3 ambushed nakedly in the past 8 days, and Here is President Obama's news press conference about it. Listen. And that's about as much as you're going to get out of President Barack Hussein Obama. In the meantime, an individual who is not even president but president-elect has taken it upon himself to call the families of the survivors of these peace officers. If this continues, I'm afraid he's going to be way too busy for my taste. But we hear nothing but crickets chirping in the field from our so-called leader,
Commander-in-Chief
from D.C., who is in fact leading from behind. Thank you for your love and consideration, Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah, it's spellbinding to me. As we talked about earlier with this guy, the things that he will come out and speak about versus the things he will not come out and speak about is gut-wrenching.
And yet he'll be the first to point fingers, accusatory fingers, of the university.
Starting with Professor Gates.
The university sergeant who was involved, and he said he was stupid in his reaction. Then consequently,
he wasn't even a university sergeant. He was a Cambridge police officer regular. He was not a Harvard University police officer.
Oh, I thought he was. Okay.
No, he was a Cambridge
You're right. He was
Cambridge
a sergeant
police officer
there.
regular.
Yes.
Yep.
But he said he acted stupidly.
Before he had any idea.
facts were in. He automatically took the side of the person whose melanin count happened to match his.
A personal friend.
Yes, and a friend.
When I say bullying from the pulpit, that's what I mean.
That's exactly what was occurring.
He's not addressing the nation. He's proselytizing his point and his agenda. And how many times has he been wrong? That's it. How many times have federal officials appointed from the White House gone to funerals of people, and not cops, but people who have shot and killed by police officers that he emotionally had a response to versus an actual issue?
Well, and you can't tell me that inviting the family of Bo Bergdahl to the White House
disgusting.
Wasn't a point where the president is informed every day via the PDB, the president's daily brief, with regard to what's important that day for the chief executive to know. He has that. He had the information because it had already developed in the Middle East about where Bergdahl had gone and for what reason. He knew precisely what was going on, but that particular narrative just happened to match what it is that he was promoting and pushing. And so then he made the deal of the century, one traitorous Bo Bergdahl, for the release of 5 terrorists who have come back to haunt us. That's just as good as negotiating as his with Iran.
Yes.
That was also a wonderful, stellar negotiation where we give them literally pallets full of cash. And of course, as Barack Obama said, that's not a payoff.
No, it's not a payoff.
You can't write this. Something like that. A plane full of pallets of cash in the dead of night flying into Iran. You'd have to have, like John Milius write that in a script for Hollywood. And even then, he couldn't go as over the top with those creative thoughts as Barack Hussein Obama has done in reality and people on the left.
Yeah. Right up to the end. That's the thing that gets me about this guy. I knew he was going to be like this right up to the end, but he's still going to be. And listen, he released a video this week that was funny. Yes. Ha ha ha. He's got a good sense of humor about himself, and I think he does. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still his job to address a nation in a time of tragedy.
That's called being a leader.
You have all of these protests, nothing. Didn't even come out and tell them to stop. You have law enforcement officers being killed left and right. Nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, here's some stats from odmp.org. That's the Officer Down Memorial Page.org. So if you want to find out the various statistics and tributes to officers that have fallen in service, go to odmp.org. Line of duty deaths this year, 131. 9/11 related illness, 2. Aircraft accident, 1. Animal related, 1. Assault, 2. Automobile accident, 21. And on down the line. Gunfire accidental, 2. Heart attack, motorcycle accident, stabbed, struck by train, struck by vehicle. Vehicular assault, 12. Here's the telling one. Gunfire, 59. Let's look by month. January started at 5, and then it went up from there. July, 19. September, 15. October, 17. This month, 19. These are stats. These are not emotions. This is what the United States is currently facing.
And dealing with.
Right now.
And dealing with.
By state. California, 11.
Yeah. It's absolutely atrocious.
The only other double-digit state is Texas.
Yeah. And it's only going to get worse.
I'm afraid you're absolutely right.
I hate to say it, the closer that we get to the Trump inauguration and the more rhetoric that the left spits and the fact that nobody in this federal government is standing up and saying, stop this now. Stop the protests. Learn the system. Stop the attack on our peace officers. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Not every single person who puts on that uniform is perfect. I'm not even going to say that they're angels. You have some people who misfit the uniform on a very small, tiny scale.
Yes, doctors kill
more than peace officers do every day.
More. Doctors kill the equivalent of one Vietnam every year. How many people died in Vietnam? 58,000.
Yes.
Well, don't hear a peep about that.
Why aren't we hearing anything about doctors like Kermit Gosnell?
Oh, there's a wonderful idea. There's a wonderful individual.
The outrage? Where's the outrage for things like that? You're always going to have people like the cop in South Carolina who, for whatever reason, through intent or accident, make a horrible decision.
But here's the corollary to that I should like to point out. Those officers, and everything, of course, is videoed now these days, there was clear evidence of malfeasance on the part of those particular officers. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Rightly so, they were prosecuted.
Immediately.
So guess what also? The system works.
It's an imperfect system, but the vast majority of the time, it works just fine.
And when cops are bad, they need to be prosecuted. That must happen. And it's happening.
It does happen left and right.
Ferguson, Missouri, 100 FBI agents descended upon that town regarding one moment in Officer Wilson's life. They turned the entire town upside down, and after a lengthy investigation... Nothing. And then the false memes began, and those are lies.
Yep.
Black Lives Matter was founded but upon a lie.
Yep.
But no one seems to care.
And every time, and we've talked about this a million times, for those people who think the DOJ should be involved in things like that, Clint said it, I've said it. What happens when they become corrupt? Who do you go to then?
Well, I've said that on the blog any number of times. When you can't trust the FBI to do its job, absent political motivations, when you can't trust the DOJ to do its job, absent political motivations, then to whom do you go for justice? Who is left?
Right. And I know that we talked about it earlier tonight, the lefties who want to push the federalization of law enforcement. But you have to understand, in most municipalities, that police chief, if there's a problem with that department for whatever reason, that police chief can be replaced. And you can get a new blood in there. You can fix problems, legitimate problems, not these hypothetical, emotional bullshit problems that they all come up with. And I've said this time and again the amount of pressure that are being put on our cops nowadays sometimes leads to these poor decisions. Case in point, when you are expected to be a mental health specialist, a social worker, a family therapist, and then deal with criminals, parolees, driving at 90 miles an hour, all of these other pressures that a human being is not programmed to do, you are going to have mistakes because you're asking them to do an abundance of things that are so outside of what they should be doing. A friend of mine who was a cop for a long time said this: "It's my job to put bad people in jail. That's what my job is. It's not my job to fix family arguments that have been festering for 25 years.
You're leading to a perfect point.
It's not my job to sit there and discuss somebody, why aren't they taking their meds? Or why are they having that bad day? Yes, absolutely. There are people who need specialized services in this country. No, it is not the job of law enforcement. These beliefs that, oh, well, that guy had mental health. Why did the cops shoot him, as we see in Sacramento right now? You mean the guy who two people said he had a gun and a knife, and then he presented officers with a knife after a pursuit, and they shot him? Well, he had mental health issues. Okay. Well, are we going to go back to the Scarlet Letter where they have to wear a sign that says, "Hi, I have mental health issues. Don't shoot me"?
Yes.
Is that what you want?
I'm a nut. I'll do anything you say.
Or do you have to understand that, unfortunately, those people, when they present a weapon to somebody who has a firearm, cop or not, it could be the number one mental health expert in the United States of America who's CCW carrying, and you find him in an alley, and that person presents a weapon, they're going to get shot. Yes, I feel bad for the families, but I don't feel bad for them because they were attacked. I feel bad for them because they've lost a loved one, and any family that has to go through that, I feel bad for on a human level. But the reality of the situation is, these people who are out there are bad people on many occasions. Even if they have mental health illnesses, that doesn't excuse when they do criminal behavior and criminal acts. It does not excuse them from that. We need to understand mental health is a big issue in this country.
Let me also point out something else that I was told by a law enforcement officer. And essentially, this was a formula that he used throughout his entire career. People's laboring under mental health issues are going to be the last persons to respond properly and sometimes the first to get shot.
Yes.
And I would say, and rightly so. Here's another point that many people should realize, and it's lucky that we don't have a terrible wave of this. Also of consideration is the fact that juveniles, just like the mentally unfit, are equally incapable of determining life and death. And I'll tell you what, this one particular individual said he would be willing to drop the hammer on a juvenile much more readily than he would on an adult, for the reason that most juveniles think that your life means nothing and it can always come back, and they have no sense of mortality whatsoever. That's a horrible statement to say. However, it's reality. Right. It's a horrible statement to say that the mentally handicapped must be shot. Well, then how do you reason with them? How do you reason with an 8-year-old? How do you reason with someone who is schizophrenic?
How do you reason with
and
somebody
is in possession of a deadly weapon?
How do you reason with somebody who's unreasonable? And I know it may sound harsh. By the way, in our chat room right now, Dan Butcher over at High Plains Pundit just laid out a whole bunch of great knowledge. But when you have two things going on in this country that are happening right now, you have the dehumanization of law enforcement officers, this belief that they are just these pawns, the whole, oh, you work for me, I pay your taxes belief that's out there. No, taxpayers may pay that officer's salary, but the law dictates how they work. It's not just whatever you want. So that is first and foremost. But the human side of it is, like I said, when you put all these pressures in different jobs on these cops, and now you're tying them up on calls that they should not be on for hours on end sometimes, and then people who really need help from that home invader, that rapist, carjacker, whatever, are now being delayed because you have Officer A who spends 2 hours at the house of the 16-year-old who allegedly has ADHD and trying to fix problems that is well outside his realm and knowledge to be able to fix, but the expectation is there now for him to fix it. And if he walks away without fixing it, he's going to end up with a complaint and then maybe lose his job. This is the reality that's presented. Now you throw in this whole Black Lives Matter, everyone hates cops are evil. Let's ignore the fact that, as Dan Butch is putting in the chat room right now, 55,000 to 60,000, out of 11,000 total gun owners, 5,500 to 6,000 per year are black-on-black crimes, of total crime murders, rather. You have the reality out there that it's not cops who are killing minorities. It is minorities killing other minorities. And you have more people who are Caucasian, as so many people like to say, who are killed by law enforcement every year that nobody bats an eye over. And I don't either.
No.
If you put yourself in a situation to be shot, I don't feel any sympathy for you.
If you're a criminal, oh well. We spoke about this about a month ago.
Yep.
LAPD's police commission basically is telling officers to run away now. If a police officer in LA is confronted by a suspect with a weapon, those people who set policies for the police department think officers should want to run away. And that was an actual finding from the LA Police Commission, which turned Monday morning quarterbacking into sort of a weekly agenda item for their wacky sort of three-ring service that they preside over every Tuesday morning. What happened is that there was an officer that got charged with a knife. And in the LAPD decision from the commission, I think the suspect charged at 2 officers with an 8 to 9 inch knife, which is a significant knife. They said that the officers should have redeployed in order to create distance.
Yep.
In plain English, the officers, they didn't run away, but they should have. That's precedent. If it's occurring in L.A., a large urban district, it's coming to a police department near you sooner or later.
And it's only going to get worse.
It's only going to get worse.
And then you have incidents like this, where the Denver, Colorado Sheriff's Department gets fined $10,000. This is just crazy to me. $10,000 for their hiring practice because, are you ready for this, folks? Hold on. They refuse to allow non-citizens to apply.
That's my most recent blog post.
And I ask you, quite
I like that in your voice. You're going, because you're trying to think of, in what universe does this make sense?
None. The long and short of it is, I ask you this. Should a non-citizen in this country, who maybe, if they follow the procedure, could possess a firearm legally, but should they be taking your constitutional rights away when it comes time and you as a citizen have been accused of breaking the law? Should that non-citizen have the right to walk up, handcuff you, take away your freedom, even only on a temporary basis, bring you to a holding facility where you're booked and charged with a crime, and then go through the criminal justice system, and if you're convicted, go to jail or prison? When that is there even any sort of normalcy? Why would that even be an issue? No.
Well, and then the departments under which
the answer's no.
that is charged with this, they're falling all over themselves. We're sorry that this happened. It's so sad. Here's the other thing that I pointed out in this. Under the DOJ pushed by Lynch and Obama, They could have said, you know what, if you continue to do this, we're going to fine you and we're going to investigate you.
Yep.
But they decided that they were going to make an example out of this department and fine them $10,000 directly up front. Don't pass go.
It's absolutely insanity.
They didn't have the money to do that. The 1986 law that revolves around this also says that you cannot become a federal law enforcement officer. Okay, so you can't become a federal law enforcement officer, but it's okay if you're an officer for another department. Apparently so. Well, let's see.
We're up against a break.
Okay, well, we're past the break. All right,
Yeah,
I'm quiet.
yeah, we are past the break. All right, when we come back, we'll pick this up on the other side, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Trump cabinet, which is getting put together like he's some sort of woodsmith. All that and more on this here on the Sackheads Radio Show live in the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying half of the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live in the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. This evening prior to Thanksgiving, the Bloviating Zeppelin joins me in studio, Sackhead Clint.
Conspicuously absent.
And you know that because you don't have to duck every time he turns his head.
If I could only fist bump you from here.
He's going to kill me the next time because I know he's going to listen if he's not right now, and he's just going to rip me up. And I'm looking forward to it. So I just want to finish out our last segment real quick. We were talking about just law enforcement in general in this country. And, you know, the last thing that I want to mention is one of the trends that we're starting to see, and it's a positive trend, is the amount of growing support from the citizenry for law enforcement. You're starting to see people be more vocal about it, and you're seeing it more and more.
Yes.
I saw a study the other day that said like 73% of this country approves of law enforcement. It was like 10% were indifferent and the remainder disapprove. So it shows you what's being reported does not directly reflect the reality. The fact that millions of calls every single day turn out without a hitch. And the other trend that we're seeing more and more that I like to see is average citizens who are helping cops in distress.
Well, that one particular incident that occurred about a week ago of the citizen with the gun that shot the suspect. We discussed that last Wednesday.
Yes.
That was a wonderful thing to occur.
Who did the survey? I read it in passing, Dave. I believe it was a university, and I want to say it was out of the Midwest somewhere. I don't remember the specific. If I can find it, I'll link it, but it was just passing thought in my head. But there's been a couple other videos, too, that have come out in the last week of officers who are in a bad way that the citizens have stepped in to assist those officers physically as well. All good things, something I want to see more happen in this country. Changing.
Two articles that I'd like to talk about before we change topics.
Oh, okay.
Because they're very recent. There's one from AL News, Alabama News, and the headline is, pair charged in explosive device at elementary school plan to shoot cops and start a race war. Oddly enough, the suspects are black. One male, one female. A convicted felon who claims he wanted to shoot cops is behind bars in connection with the explosives device planted outside a Trussville Elementary School. Authorities today announced state charges against 35-year-old Zachary Edwards and 34-year-old Raphael Dilligard, both of eastern Birmingham. They are charged with possession of a hoax-destructive device, rendering false alarm, and making terrorist threats. There was a long probe by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Edwards claimed to be a member of the Black Panthers and the Black Mafia, and he wanted to blow things up and kill people and then start a race war. Then there was a second article out of New York City.
Yes.
Queens man cuffed for trying to push strap hanger onto Harlem subway tracks, yelling, "I hate white people." Cops busted a Queens man for trying to push a strap hanger onto the subway tracks in Harlem and yelling, "I hate white people." So they cuffed him up and took him away. The people came and helped that individual and pulled him back from the tracks. So this isn't stopping. In my opinion, aided and abetted by Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, and Barack Hussein Obama, who still is gone and not interested in having at least a brief press conference about officers being killed.
In his defense, a little bit, there are some days I hate white people, too.
Oh, there's days when I hate everyone.
Well, yeah, but white people are included in that. Because
hell yes.
I am equal opportunity.
Oh, hell yes.
I
don't limit it to race.
My anger doesn't see color. It's everybody
Well,
equally.
I can't see color anyway. I'm colorblind.
Because there's a whole bunch of little white kids in Vancouver and other places that I hate right now. So, I mean, first one to admit it. So let's move on. We mentioned before the break that we were going to discuss the Trump Thanksgiving message. And he's released a couple videos on YouTube. One of the things I like, and Carrie Donovan, who contributes to us greatly, and I were discussing this earlier this week. One of the things I like that he's doing is he's going direct to YouTube and directly speaking to people versus doing it through media outlets. And you could say, well, why is that? Why do you like that more?
Well, for the obvious reason.
Exactly, right? They can go back and clip it, but the fact that YouTube, and I go back to how he's going to use media outlets and social media in the future, the fact that he's direct to YouTube takes out the middleman, and they'll edit it for when they replay it, and that's fine. That's fine. But because they're going to do it, and we already have a defense for it, and we know it's coming. But it gives you the opportunity to go back, and it's on YouTube and easily found. Sorry, I'm responding to a message. Dan Butcher and his family delivered some turkeys and food items around the city to law enforcement folks where he's from, and I wanted to say thank you because that's
awesome. A wonderful thing. Thanks, Dan.
But one of the things that he did with this, first of all, he kept it short. It's, 2 minutes and 38 seconds? It wasn't a long speech at all. Didn't need to be.
What would happen if I wanted to hear that?
I would hit play.
Today I would like to provide the American people with an update on the White House transition and our policy plans for the first 100 days. Our transition team is working very smoothly, efficiently, and effectively. Truly great and talented men and women, patriots indeed, are being brought in, and many will soon be a part of our government, helping us to make America great again. My agenda will be based on a simple core principle: putting America first. Whether it's producing steel, building cars, or curing disease, I want the next generation of production and innovation to happen right here on our great homeland, America, creating wealth and jobs for American workers. As part of this plan, I've asked my transition team to develop a list of executive actions we can take on day one to restore our laws and bring back our jobs. It's about time. These include the following. On trade, I am going to issue our notification of intent to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a potential disaster for our country. Instead, we will negotiate fair bilateral trade deals that bring jobs and industry back onto American shores. On energy, I will cancel job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy, including shale energy and clean coal, creating many millions of high-paying jobs. That's what we want. That's what we've been waiting for. On regulation, I will formulate a rule which says that for every one new regulation, 2 old regulations must be eliminated. So important. On national security, I will ask the Department of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to develop a comprehensive plan to protect America's vital infrastructure from cyber attacks and all other form of attacks. On immigration, I will direct the Department of Labor to investigate all abuses of visa programs that undercut the American worker. On ethics reform, as part of our plan to drain the swamp, we will impose a 5-year ban on executive officials becoming lobbyists after they leave the administration, and a lifetime ban on executive officials lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. These are just a few of the steps we will take to reform Washington and rebuild our middle class. I will provide more updates in the coming days as we work together to make America great again for everyone, and I mean everyone.
2 things about this speech. First of all, direct and to the point.
Yep.
And laid out a lot of his agenda. Here's why the direct and to the point is so ideal. Instead of a 28-minute diatribe.
Short and succinct, yes.
Or as Agador called it, a Castro-esque speech. This message could have been watched waiting for a train on YouTube in a train station, right? Or waiting in line for something, or sitting at home, or if you have kids, that 2.5 minutes you get before the kids need something. Whatever. It was concise. It really showed you some great things. The lobbying. I think that might be one of my favorite things so far.
And here's another, that brings up an interesting point. The people who don't want to be on his cabinet, will that be an aspect that they don't want to be held to? It makes you wonder. It makes me wonder.
Well, it absolutely does. You have to look at that. So he laid out energy revival in this country, shale, clean coal.
Completing the Keystone XL pipeline.
Keystone is huge. Clean coal is huge, too.
There is such a thing as clean coal.
One of the biggest lies that the left has pushed is that we're still using coal for electricity from 1932. The system we have now for clean coal is immensely more efficient. It is immensely less harmful pollution-wise. I always say it's the difference to me between pollution and global warming. I don't think the two necessarily... Pollution, smog. To me, that's pollution, right? The wind hasn't blown it out. You're creating a lot. There's a big difference. Clean coal is huge. We have so much coal in this country. Everybody knows it. That should be mined, and can be used.
And it can be made safe.
Very, very safe and very, very efficient. So I think that's great. Putting the worker visas in place, rolling back the TPP or destroying it. You look at these things, he's using the same message, short and sweet. To the people who now, a CNN poll came out, said 53% of people believe Trump will do a good job. Starts to show you that the number is starting to go. People are starting to get out of election mode and into listening mode, where they're starting to pay attention to what he's saying.
Well, at least the one thing about trade that I appreciate from Donald Trump is that he's not saying that he wants no trade. He simply is saying that he wants fair trade. Fair trade?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
And here's more proof of the pudding. Last week, as a result of this, Apple said that they're going to consider producing the iPhone back in the United States. And what did Ford do? Well, Bill Ford, not Trump, Bill Ford called Donald Trump last week and said that SUV plant that's in Kentucky that I wanted to put into Mexico, guess what? I'm leaving it back in Kentucky.
Well, and exactly. And the left tried to say that this was a plan that was already in place and it just timing happened to be everything. I saw that everywhere.
Right.
But there's a reason the CEO of Ford informed Donald Trump directly that it wasn't leaving. And here's the thing. It's not, a lot of people said, oh, he's bullying them into staying. He's really not, because when you listen to his tax plan, it is encouraging them to stay. They now can keep those businesses here where the labor becomes more directly affected to the communities that would have lost those jobs.
Let's remember one other thing about Ford. Say what you will about their cars.
They didn't take any
money. Who
money.
Didn't take any stimulus?
Not a dollar.
That's right.
Not a dollar.
GM, Chrysler, Fiat, yes, they did.
Yes, all of them did.
Yes.
So, you're also starting to see, I'd love to see a national right-to-work law. I think that's great, Agado. It's a great idea. But now he's also starting to put a cabinet together. One of the biggest concerns going into this from left pundits was that it was only going to be Trump insiders who were getting appointed to the cabinet.
And it's not.
Not even close. When he's saying that it's the best and the best and the brightest, he's kind of going back to the days of JFK, right, where he didn't care who he was picking per se, as long as they were right for the job. And you're starting to see it for the most part, I think. Mattis alone, amazing pick. I think a perfect pick for that position. Flynn, I think, is a great pick for the NSA position, or National Security Advisor. Sessions, I think, is a good job. I would like to have seen Trey Gowdy, but honestly, I think Sessions is already one of those people. He's like, yeah, half of Washington hates me anyhow, so I'm just going to continue to be the bull, the bull in the china shop, and go and do what I have to do.
And there were also those specious things that were leveled against him as being a racist, when in fact there was no real specific evidence to that. Again, that's just more of the left trying to instill more fake news. The Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, Trump has selected her. He wants to drastically shrink the education department, so he chooses her. Well, it's not a guy, it's not a white male, it's a female. Mm-hmm. UN ambassador, he chose Nikki Haley.
Who he had
She opposed him from the very beginning.
Very, very strong. But he obviously believes that she can be effective in that position at UN. And listen, you're going to see Nikki Haley's no pushover. I have my disagreements with her about this past election, but she's no pushover.
No.
She's a very, very, very good governor and a very, very smart woman. And I don't think that she's going to kowtow to the United Nations the same way that we see now with Samantha Powers.
Well, and she accepted the job knowing full well that Trump wants to minimize some of the power and pull that down for that
UN.
cabinet position.
And a lot of people said, he's saying that he's going to get the best, but Nikki Haley has absolutely no foreign policy career. Your job is a diplomat. And it doesn't matter what your personal foreign policy is. You're carrying the foreign policy of the American people set forth by the administration. He feels that she can effectively convey that to the United Nations.
What kind of a diplomat was John Kerry? Where was his diplomatic experience?
Zero. I would say that she's far more of a diplomat being a governor than just being a senator. That's just my belief. Hillary Clinton, what diplomat was she? Why?
Zero.
Because she lied about
Yes.
getting shot at in Bosnia? Exactly. You can go right through Trump's ambassadors top to bottom. No experience. Samantha Powers had no experience. Nikki Haley, I think, will be a really effective ambassador to the United Nations. It kind of brings us to...
Well, she was a game changer for South Carolina.
Yeah, she absolutely was a game changer
in terms
for
of
South
leftists,
Carolina.
they should love her. She was the one that insisted the Confederate flag come down over the House.
Right.
Ben
Which
Carson.
I disagreed on.
Yeah, but that's all right. He's making concessions. Ben Carson today for Housing and Urban Development Secretary. I'd say if there's one thing that you can say about Ben Carson is that he's honest and he's forthright, and I'll wager he has a massive amount of ethics within him.
Yep. Oh, yes. And, I heard, I was saying that I was listening and somebody brought up a really good point of the reason he wasn't Surgeon General with HHS, Health and Human Services, is because it's such a bureaucracy that it needs to be torn down and kind of rebuilt. And that's not Ben's forte, Dr. Carson's forte.
Yeah, he likes hands-on stuff.
Yeah, so it's a smaller, easier place to work in the sense that he can be more effective on the ground. Versus whoever goes into HHS is going to have 2 years of trying to rebuild that after they tear it down, shrink it, and actually make it effective. Plus, we don't know what the repeal plan is going to be, which it is coming at some point. So that could play a big role into it, too. It does bring us to Mitt Romney, one of the
That's
leaders
a huge
of Secretary of State.
Question mark.
So,
I have some very definite thoughts on that. And as you do, too, I know. We discussed.
Absolutely. Here's how I look at Mitt Romney. First of all, like he did with Reince Priebus, hey, old guard GOP, it's time for us to get together and work now. We didn't agree during the campaign, but look, it's time for us to work together and make this country better. Number two, Romney is a very successful businessman internationally and in the country because of his ability to make deals, to work with other companies, understand how to get the best for you while working abroad. It actually gives him a lot of foreign policy experience, I believe. I believe personally. You don't become a man of Mitt Romney's wealth without being able to be successful in business.
And be diplomatic and know how to negotiate.
Right. And, again, as I said earlier, you now have all of that with a Donald Trump agenda. The administration's agenda is his job to push. And I think that he could successfully do that. As angry as I am at him for what he did to Trump, I'm more angry about it than Trump is. You know what I mean?
Apparently so.
And that's fine. I have that right to be angry. I'm not the commander-in-chief that's going to be in office in less than 2 months. He is. And I have to, on some level, say, if he thinks he's good for the job, he probably knows a little bit more than I do about the fact.
Well, and they've spoken face-to-face. There must be something. I'll be up front. I'll be completely honest about this. Once I discovered that Mitt Romney had spoken to his son and said that essentially from the very beginning, I wasn't interested in running for president. He lost me. I would never, ever, ever have voted for Mitt Romney ever again or wanted anything to do with him.
Sour grapes.
And then when he decided that he was going to attack Donald Trump in a manner that does not befit him at all.
No, that was an attack job by the GOP. Because
but he went along. So you and I
he did go along with it.
You and I disagree on that with this caveat from me. I can only assume, well, we know he's met with Mitt Romney. So there must be something there that he thinks that there's a sufficient amount of credibility for him to consider Mitt Romney. I'll grant him that. I haven't spoken to Mitt. He's pissed me off. I'll be honest about that. But I've not met with the man, so I don't know.
I was furious at Mitt. I still am. And the funny part is I have met Mitt Romney a few times. And you're right. That does not fit his character, what he did in that speech. I don't look at it as water under the bridge. I still think he should be held accountable. But I'm not the president-elect.
No.
And
the other thing is, we're not going to get everything we want. That's just not going to happen in a candidate.
For me, it's an emotional thing versus a literal and a functional thing. As the commander-in-chief, he has to choose function. He has to choose what's going to work for his administration. If he feels, and by the way, he doesn't have to keep them. These cabinet positions are not for 4 years.
Yes.
So everyone who's like, oh, he's hey, if
talk
he
about
sucks,
talk about right to work.
Right. If he sucks, you're done. And I don't think that Trump will have any problem getting rid of any cabinet member that's not doing an effective job.
Yes.
I think that you will probably see him be harder on his cabinet than most other presidents. And as Agador said, we will be watching. We will be watching.
Well, and he's already, to me, and as you indicated, one of the greatest things that I found that Trump has said is he wants people that are not going to be whores when they're through with his administration.
Yep.
That said a lot to me.
Yep. And if you're going to take a cabinet position, yeah, you know what? Mitt doesn't need to lobby to make money after he gets out. But there are other people in there who probably could.
Who could and would.
make millions.
Yes.
And if they're going to turn around and give all that up for 5 years to serve the country,
that indicates to me that they're fairly serious about doing that job.
I absolutely agree, and it's going to be fun to see. Like I said, I'm more impressed with his candidates and his choices so far than I was hoping to be. I think he's onto a good path, and I think that a lot of people in this country are starting to see that. And I hope he keeps going down this road. We only have a minute left.
Mike Pompeo, CIA director.
Yes, Pompeo is a good choice.
Jeff Sessions, Attorney General.
I have to stop saying Pete.
Michael Flynn, National Security Advisor.
Yep.
Reince Priebus, Chief of Staff.
Reince.
Bannon as Chief Strategist. Secretary of State. That'll be an interesting one.
And it could be Rudy. I'd like to see Rudy.
I'd like to see Rudy in some...
Closer to home.
Yes.
I want to see Rudy closer to home. Homeland Security czar is where I think he would do very, very well at. And then I'm going to be curious to see who his press secretary is. And I don't know why that's such a big deal to me, but I have a feeling it's going to be somebody who will push back against the media very, very tough. And I think that alone keep Pompeo away from the volcanoes. Oh, Agador, that might have been the joke of the night coming out of the chat room.
Nice.
I appreciated that very, very much. Well, we'll find out more as the weeks roll on. Folks, that's it for the Sackheads Radio Show. Happy Turkey Day to you all, especially on the East Coast.
Day.
We will see you next Wednesday right here at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, following the amazing one, the Exceptional Conservative. Pick it up tomorrow morning with Jersey Joe and the Reaver of Common Sense.
Wait, is Jersey Joe actually on Turkey Day?
Oh, no, you know what? He's taking Turkey Day off, I think. I'm sorry. You will have the Exceptional one tomorrow evening. Thank you so much.
He'll be packed with turkey.
He will be packed with turkey. Or Twinkies. It depends on which Joe. I mean, Joe is off tomorrow. He'll be back Friday. Sorry about that, Joe. Twinkie the Kid, Joe. Twinkie the Kid. We'll see you next week here, folks. Make sure you like us on Facebook. SHR Media is the code word, keyword, whatever it's called. Like it.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.